Hello YouTube, it's Alk here with Yu-Gi-Oh! Underground, coming at you with the promised Volcanic deck profile. I was going to upload it yesterday, but I was playing games, and then a ban list came out, and then my deck wasn't legal, so I decided instead of showing you something that was going to be irrelevant in a week or so, that I would just build something for the new format. You know, I'm just starting with the deck anyway, so kind of give you my take on what might look good this format, and then we can develop the deck and this series from there. So, without further ado, let us jump into it. So first, the most important beater in the deck, 3 Volcanic Rocket, just gets you to the Blaze Accelerated Reloaded, and then 3 of the Boss Monster, which is Volcanic Scattershot. It was actually pretty funny. When I was first building this deck, I asked my friend, I was like, I feel like the problem with Volcanics is that they don't have a boss monster. And then my friend was like, nah man, Scattershot is the boss monster. And he was right. This thing is a monster. Just the ability to repeatedly Regeki your opponent's board and completely have control over what they're doing in their turn is something insane, and is something that I think will keep this deck relevant throughout the format, even though they did lose cards that they liked, and by cards that they liked, I mean Vanity's Emptiness. Next, 3 Shell, just mainly to support the draw engine. The reloaded draw engine is really good, and the ability to continuously supply that engine with cards via Volcanic Shell is also insanely good. And rounding out the Volcanic monsters, we play 1 Volcanic counter. Good way to put pressure on your opponent in the late game, but mostly it's just because Reloaded isn't a card that your opponent likes to MST, and if they do, they just open themselves up to get its Grave effect to scattershot them. So having this for the late game is like good utility, but also like if they're leaving the Reloadeds on the field, then I just felt like I didn't have enough Volcanics here to pitch and draw with them. So this is really just something to lend itself to the draw engine so you can dig deeper into your deck, especially if you don't get to Shell right away, and I'm not playing Foolish Burial, so that can happen sometimes a little more often than not. And then the non-Volcanic monsters of the deck, we have 3 Pot of Avarice, really good if you can get to the bottom of the deck and just loop your Scatter Shots and Firestorm Guard by using Firestorm Guard to shuffle 3 Scatter Shots and a Firestorm Guard back into the deck. You're in a really good place, and just the ability to keep that drawing going and to, I mean, once again, repeatedly nuke your opponent's board. Firestorm Guard is really what just pulls the deck together, and there's a reason Pot of Avarice is banned, and playing this deck, Firestorm Guard reminds you of that reason. Next, we have 2 Summoner's Monks. Some people are trying to find ways to cut this out of the deck because it doesn't seem to have a lot of utility, but I think the first turn, like, Monk into Rocket plays are just insensitively good. If you Monk, pitch a spell, get Rocket, Searcher Reloaded, and then you can, from there, depending on what you have, if you have, like, Floodgate, you can go into Karen Gorgon to protect it from MST. My personal favorite is go into Level Chain, and if you, which is actually really affordable now because it got reprinted, but you go into Level Chain, this sends a card to the graveyard, not a monster, so you can send another one of these traps to the graveyard, or you can send a shell to the graveyard in order to fuel the draw engine, but just seeing 2 of your reloadeds, like, active within the game state in the first turn is something that's really good, and I think Summoner Monk just really lends itself to that. And even furthermore, like, if you get into the late game and have Summoner Monk and a couple spells, I find myself in situations where I, like, will Monk into Rocket just to get a bunch of level 4s on the field to make plays with, like, real monsters that aren't just 1900 beaters. So I think Monk is, like, invaluable to the deck, and you might disagree with me, but definitely a pretty good card. And rounding out the monsters, I do play 2 Effect Veiler. It is imperative. I built this deck to fight Necros. I still think it's going to be the best deck this format, so it's the deck I built this deck to counter. And when playing Necros, it is imperative that you do not get Trishula'd, because if Trishula banishes one of your Scatter Shots, like, that's game sometimes. That's game a lot of the time. And so while we do play traps to like negate Trishula's effects and like different ways to stop Trishula, sometimes if they like chain Book of Eclipse to your Fiendish Chain or something, like you just want to have that effect defense in hand that they can't see coming, and that isn't negatable by MST, so you just Valor it. And I think Valor will be a reasonably good card this format for that reason. I'm not sure if it is better than Breakthrough Skill per se, but if you get to games 2 and 3 and like side maxes or stuff, it definitely lends itself better to that. So, just my thoughts on the card. And next, onto the spells. To get rid of your reloadeds and other continuous traps, actually, yeah, 1 Wildfire, 2 Magic Planner. This card's good because it makes hands mistiming, and also serves as another way to nuke your opponent's board so that they don't really see this coming. They can see scatter shots coming from a mile away most of the time because you have the card in the graveyard, but it's really hard to see Wildfire coming. And 2 Magic Planners because you can launch your continuous trap cards to draw more cards, which helps you dig through your deck to get to cards that will help you win the game, and eventually game state where you can loop scatter shots very consistently. Speaking of consistency, we're going to play 3 Pod Dualities for that same reason, and 3 Upstart Goblins. I felt like the reason you didn't play Upstart Goblin in this deck was because it turned off Vandy's Emptiness, but now Vandy's Emptiness is at 1, so I'm a firm believer of Upstart Theory. 37 cards are better than 40, especially in this deck where like getting to the bottom of your deck gets exponentially better because it makes your ability to loop Firestorm guards better. That being said, this is the first card I would pitch with Summoner Monk because Volcanics do kind of value the ability to damage your opponent's life points, and you don't want to give your opponent too many life points just because if you allow yourself to get into a game state where like the 1500 damage is from the scatter shots and the damage from the counter can make or break games, you don't want to be ruining those games by playing Upstart Goblin. But in my playtesting so far, it hasn't come up. Doesn't mean it couldn't, so that'll definitely be something to look at moving forward. Next for the traps, the best trap, the card that makes the deck, Blaze Accelerator Reloaded. It is your draw card, it is your draw engine, it is your Regeki, it is everything, and yeah, this card just makes the deck. It's insane. Pitch Volcanic, draw a card, and if it's in the graveyard, banish it to send a Volcanic from deck to grave. Because I don't play Foolish Burial, sometimes I've had to do this for shells, but most of the time you'll be doing it for scatter shots to nuke your opponent's board. And that's just insensitively good because, like, if you can nuke your opponent's board at any time, and believe me, trap cards in the graveyard, like, are not negatable, really. So it just like makes your opponent like limit what they put on board, and then on your turn you can just use that to grab momentum. Next in trap cards, 1 Vandy's Emptiness because it's at 1 now. If you see my video, if you saw my Vandy's Emptiness video, I talk about why like at 1 Vandy's Emptiness is really good for the player who draws it, and you're building a deck that has a really big draw engine, so definitely don't want to do that or miss out on opportunities to win games with Vandy's for sure. And replacing Vandy's Emptiness as a Floodgate, I'm just testing this, and I'm not sure how it works in practice, but 2 Mistake. Mistake, like I said, I built this to beat Necros, most definitely. For that same reason, we are going to be playing 3 Mind Crush. But once you search with your Rocket on the first turn, and play your Potted Duality, it's not really imperative that your search cards go off, particularly like if you're that desperate of a situation for a reloaded, you can always add them from grave to hand with Rocket too. So I felt like Mistake just to lock out Necros, especially since they probably won't run as many main decked MSTs without Vandy's Emptiness. So if you can get this out on them, it just goes a long way to helping your cause. Mind Crush is really good for helping you not to get Trishula'd, and also just drawing multiple Mind Crushes can be a win condition, and since we draw so much, it's very likely we see multiple Mind Crushes. Another win condition we have within the trap section is Reckless Greeds. If you can draw this in multiples, you can get really far into your deck, and you can just create a game state where you just have huge amounts of advantage and huge amounts of pressure that your opponent just can't come back from in the 2 turns that you miss your draw phases for, if that's even that much of a drawback when you can get them to stack with each other. And rounding out the traps, we have 1 Fiendish Chain. I want to play a certain amount of continuous traps. I think the number is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 continuous traps for the Magic Planners. This is a good way to bait MSTs, also a way to stop yourself from getting trished. The first thing you should do is try to stop yourself getting trished, because if they chain like anything to that, that's when you want to employ the Veilers to really make sure you don't get trished. And then finally, this card, Ring of Destruction, hits back in the game, has a new errata now, so it's not quite as good, but it very well synergizes with what Volcanics try to do. You burn your opponent down and get them into life point ranges where the damages from your counter and your scatter shots really put a lot of pressure on them. So next for the extra deck. The extra deck's really just a bunch of rank 4s, and for that reason it's kind of self-explanatory. So Level Chain, Abyss Dweller, Karen Gorgon. You can make this with 2 Summoner Monks. Really, there's all the room in the extra deck in the world. You don't even need one, but you don't really need one outside of like Level Chain, Karen Gorgon, Abyss Dweller, and maybe Emerald. Castell's kind of important. 85 Crazy Box, haven't used it once. Exton, haven't used it once. That is out to hands, that's cool. Ragnar Zero's a good card now because I guess Fire Fist are back and Direwolf 2 out cards. And that to attack Graveyard, and that just to do like random life point damages. And finally, I'm playing Veiler, so I'm playing an Armadreus just for an extra out to hands if they side them in, because I imagine people would against this deck. And for the side deck, I'll tell you the truth, the side deck kind of leaves a lot to be desired, like the way I have it right now, but definitely worth sharing. I think the deck's weaknesses that I'm going to have to work on moving forward is I think Shadows and Burning Abyss with ways to mitigate your destruction of them are going to be harder matchups that the deck didn't really have to worry about last format, but will probably have to worry about this format. So I feel like the side deck at some point will have to lend itself more to that, or the main deck, and we'll have to see how that works out as the format develops. But 3 Lancia, this is the most important card because it stops you from getting trished and stops your opponent from banishing your scatter shots. There's a lot more decks than just Necros that you have to side this against just to make sure your scatter shots don't get banished. Likewise, 3 Maxi, just because you can draw, like, it stops the 3 Axis decks, flattens tracks, and just lets you get closer to win condition in games 2 and 3, especially because the decks that you side Maxi against are the ones that you are very happy nuking the boards of, so that's good. 1 Battle Fader, just because if they're going to let you draw 20 cards off Max C, then you should have something in your deck to stop them from killing you. And obviously something that, 3 MST, I'm not maining them anymore, I'm siding them. I don't really know of a single card that's played that, like, really hurts Volcanics, like a Skill Drain, I suppose, but I don't really know if Clees are going to be your biggest problem, and if so, like, the odds that they draw Skill Drain aren't terribly high. I might stick an MST back in the main deck, but just thinking on the more Therio side, since this deck really is only a day old, I did take all the MSTs out, because I'm just not really sure, like, if the 1 Skill Drain is, like, enough of a worry to warrant playing cards that, like, aren't really terribly live. 3 Fairy Wind, just for more Klee hate, because if they do get that Skill Drain game 1, you're going to need to crush them games 2 and 3. But also, you have to deal with Fire Fist now, I suppose, and Fairy Wind's good against that. So I still keep the 3 Fairy Wind in the side deck. And the last 2 cards, I actually don't own them. Ojama Trios for the Burning Abyss matchup. Now that they don't have Tour Guide, it's harder to deal with having monsters on their side of the field that aren't Burning Abyss. So That's very good, and it also adds an extra 900 board damage when it comes time to nuke their board, so it's a particularly effective card against Burning Abyss. But like I said, the side deck will probably change, and if the format gets really diverse, we could actually probably see the main deck change a little bit too. But this is my immediate thoughts on what a Volcanic deck might look like for the April 2015 format. Be sure to click that like button if you liked it. Also, get in the comments below. I am just now getting back into the game for this format, and of course don't know all of the niches, and so if you guys have input on the deck or what the deck might look like in the meta, I would absolutely love to hear it, and I appreciate it all. So thank you guys, and I